Good morning. This is Bill from Out of Europa, Naples on a lovely Florida Tuesday. I'm full of crap. It really isn't that lovely. It's humid as hell and flies are out, mosquitoes are out, and I find it all very troubling. But at least there are no birds flying around at me, running into my field of vision, hovering over me. That's a good thing. I can't hear the roosters, and nobody else at the dealership is here, so I have it all to myself. It's nice and quiet. And things are, they could be worse. I've been away for a little while, missed all last week pretty much. We went to Sebring, raced the Miatas. I did manage to not crash, which is good. That always makes for a pretty decent weekend when I don't run into somebody or something. And it is kind of a rare weekend these days, as I've been tending to do that. Anyway, nobody wants to hear about that. Here's another thing nobody wants to hear about. On the way, God, the noise of the, quiet and peaceful. The minute I hit the record button, we get a friggin' dumpster truck. The very minute. Anyway, here's something else nobody wants to hear about. On the way to work this morning, this old Silverado passed me, a real piece of crap. I mean, just savaged. Looks like it's been a work truck for 15 years. And hanging off the rear end is this set of balls. I mean, realistic, anatomically correct, huge, sagging down from the bumper almost to the ground. And I have to wonder. I mean, I sit there thinking, other than, our detailer, what human being, is flipping through Amazon or, looking on the internet, sees this most revolting, incredibly disgusting accessory and says, oh yeah, that's for me. That's what I've got to have. I want those balls hanging from the back of my truck, because then people will think, well, I don't know what people will think. I think they're just something people shouldn't have. Anyway, 2008 BMW M3 Cabrio. This one is finished in space gray. It's got black leather inside. It is the E90 series BMW. This one is, I believe the convertibles are an E93. And it was, the 4th generation M3. I've got to be honest, first of all, I've never been much of a BMW guy. I've always liked Mercedes. I mean, I've owned a few BMWs, a couple of E30s. They're just fantastic cars, always loved them. The original M3 is a lust car for me. And, but beyond that, over the years, they strike me as finicky, fragile, not built with that same sort of big truck quality that Mercedes has. And frankly, M cars have screwed me time and time again. Every time I break my rule of having no M cars in stock, it just, it comes back to haunt me. I end up doing some sort of a Vanos job on an M5. They always get these hyper-technical German problems that are very convoluted and very confusing and awfully expensive to fix. And when they do get fixed, they don't get fixed, and then they get fixed the second time. And it's just one of those things. I had an M5, a 2000 M5, one of the ultimate car guy cars. Drove it for a little while, put it up for sale, and it just bit me, and I said to hell with it. And we had an M6. The M3s generally have been okay, although I have had a couple of horror stories with the SMGs in the earlier versions. But we'll get into all that anyway. So hopefully this M3 is going to be a good one. The guy who sold it to us, he said, he's run effortless miles on it, needed very little maintenance. It's been very dependable for him. I did some internet research on this model, and that does pan out. Plus, this thing does have 117,000 miles, so it did manage to get that far without actually bankrupting anyone, so that's a good thing. What other complaints do I have about 3 Series? Very few about M3s. Generally speaking, the people who drive them can be, how can I put that delicately? The people who drive them can be obnoxious. Is that the correct word? I don't know. I'm sure they're lovely people, sporting people, generally speaking, but anyway, yeah, let's just keep going. Exterior-wise, you can tell this is special. You can tell it's an M3, but they really didn't go overboard. This is, of course, the Bangle era with flame surfacing and such. They did give it this sort of lightweight aluminum hood with a big power hump in the middle, a couple little vents off to the side. The front fenders are flared out, a little bit beyond what the standard fleet-sided 3 Series would have. Has these big vents in the fenders with the M3 badging. Nice big alloy wheels, sort of color-coded. These are, they're not really color-coded. They'd be gray on a white one, but they do look very nice, and they've got these manhole covers behind them, big, giant vented disc brakes with a floating caliper system, which is interesting in a sports car, but it does work very, very well. You can see the rocker panel sort of flared out, special to the M3. A little bit of flare on the back quarter. We got flies again. Anyway, big rubber, big meats underneath this thing. In the back, a special M bumper with 4 pipes, nice looking diffuser down there. It's all very subtle. Without being too subtle. So it's really just the right amount of Teutonic accoutrements to set this particular M-Series car apart from the other 3 Series. In a convertible format, there's a lot of guys out there who are going to tell you it's incorrect for an M3. The first M3 was this lightweight, what are they called, homologation special, which was made to, run cars in the European Touring Championship. So they had to build a few for the street. They did. They were flared. They had wings. They were lightweight. And, of course, they had a tin roof for structural rigidity. Well, over the years, the M3 became a little bit of a profit center for BMW, and not everybody was jumping in one to take it to the racetrack. Some guys just wanted to cruise it down to, the local restaurant, the yacht club, the marina, whatnot. And that brought about the convertible version, and even, God forbid, brought in automatic. So, the M3 sort of had changed from what it was originally intended to be. You could still get a proper M3, tin roof, lightweight, all that. But there were some other ones out there which were a little bit questionable in the sports car department. And some guys will do that with this ragtop. But one reason that I like it, and ragtop I guess is not the correct term, but one reason I like this is this car is a cacophony of sound. It's got an incredible motor, an incredible exhaust note, and everything is amplified with the top down. I mean, it becomes just an oral masterpiece. You stop that. I know what you're thinking, you perverts. But it really does. It, you can hear all the burbling and gurgling on the upshifts, particularly with this DCT it's got, which we'll get into. But anyway, let's just start in the trunk. So with the top down, you do get access to your cargo, but not a ton of it. You got to kind of reach under this little slit here that looks like, they would have fired arrows through it in the Middle Ages. But there is a fair amount of space underneath that. And if you put everything in before the top goes down, that'll be okay for you. Otherwise, it's just a trunk. It ain't bad for a 4-seat convertible. And you can see that beautiful aluminum hardtop does stow quite nicely in there. If I think about it, we'll look in the trunk again with the top up. Real quick, just to addend the trunk issue, if I put this down in this secret place, it's so secret my detailer didn't bother to clean it, you can turn the back seat into a bit of a cargo bed, so you don't have to put all your crap, anvils and cylinder heads, you don't want to put those on your leather, so you can fold that thing down and stick them here, even use these guys to tie down your cargo. It also has that giant pass-through, so if you want to put a set of golf clubs passing through into the trunk with the top down, you can. You just slide it right through that guy. Ditto sniper rifles or fishing rods or any kind of long cargo you might have, a bazooka or whatnot, can all be slid through that. It goes into this bag thing in the back, and then you can put the top down over it, which all works nice. You also get these little cool things where you can hang your shopping bags from, so a little bit of extra practical utility in this car. And, for a car that has the performance figures of a 911, that's pretty nice. It adds a layer of practicality you usually don't get in a sports car. All right, under here, and that hood weighs nothing. It's hilarious how light that hood is a bit of an anomaly for BMW. So this is a 4-liter all aluminum, actually aluminum silicone-based block V8, 414 horsepower, only 295 pound-feet of torque, which is an interesting low figure for a V8, but we'll get into that. Part of the reason for that is it revs freely to 8,400 RPM, which is an insane red line for a V8, particularly in 2008. This engine was built in the same plant they put together the Formula One cars, and in fact acts a little bit like a Formula One engine. It's much lighter, believe it or not, than the six-cylinder that it replaced. And, you know, hearkening back to that first M3 with the, instead of putting a big BMW inline six in it, they ran this sort of edgy, testy four-cylinder. You know, that's precedent for putting an 8 in this generation. Again, that said, this 8 behaves a little bit like an inline 6, albeit with 414 horsepower. The way it free revs, the torque curve, it's full of BMW technology, the kind that freaks me out on M cars, you know, as if a single Vanos wasn't enough. This has a double Vanos. It uses independent butterflies for every cylinder head, so every cylinder. So every piston on this car has its own throttle, which of course intensely enhances throttle response. So anyway, I will say this, it does seem that these have been pretty reliable engines. I haven't heard a lot of crying about them. I haven't, you know, seen too many in the shop. This guy who traded this one in said it's been really dependable, and we'll take his word for it. But anyway, hopefully it won't be another in the string of M cars that just made me miserable. All very pretty under there, nice, well-maintained, and just, you know, very, very proper. You see all the lightweight stuff, those aluminum bars and braces, and, you know, those M guys, they really do know their business. Very nice kidney grills up front, the rondelle in the middle, these sort of lovely angular light assemblies with the halos, very pretty, xenon. Big air intake there in the bottom to suck in air for that V8, and you know, unmistakably BMW and intensely aggressive. The side mirrors, the bling on this thing, different again from the standard 3 Series, aerodynamic and very, very attractive, obviously. All right, let's hop in. Here you see in the back seat, you'll have plenty of room for your Canadians. You know, you look, again, this thing turns in basically 911 performance figures, but the seats in the back of a 911 are completely laughable. I don't even know if you fit a Canadian back there. So this thing, you can, you know, they're not going to be thrilled if you're driving from Florida to Cleveland, but it could be worse. And certainly for a short trip to a restaurant or shooting range or, you know, any number of places, you could stick a couple of adults back there and they'll be happy enough. Up front, beautiful leather sport seats, very, very supportive, gorgeous leather, a nice mix of utility for sportiness and luxury for the gorgeous quality. Has a little thigh support you can pop out. It is a power seat with memory and lumbar, and a very comfy place to be. Door panel, you know, very nice and sort of, you know, nice leather up here. It's all very understated and Teutonic. They're not throwing all kinds of visual cues at you. It's just very simple and nice and lovely. I even like the subtle trim. They're nice with the wood, but I think in a sports car like this, it looks better with the black. Get the keys out and we'll hop in. Alright, so to fire this thing up, I'm going to slide a key into this little receptacle, foot on the brake, tap the start-stop. I made the mistake of not putting on my seat belt, so it's going to make that really irritating BMW bing at me. You already hear that V8. Very, very edgy sound out of that thing. Extraordinarily edgy. You don't get that rumble. You're kind of expecting it to be, you know, sort of small block Chevy-ish with the big burbling sound of, you know, deep rumbling bass. You don't get that. I mean, for a V8, it really does a nice job of emulating a 6-cylinder, although you can tell it's got a little bit more edge. Over here you've got, of course, all your window controls, your headlights with automatic. Again, the sort of interesting carbon fibery leather looking stuff around the dash. dash. You know, this thing is unbelievable. The thickness of the steering wheel, a little too thick for me. I don't love it. I'd like it to be dialed back a little bit. I don't know why they made it like that, but of course I have little Trump hands, so maybe that's my problem. You can see it's got these nice metal paddle shifters, very simple, plus on the passenger side over here, negative here, so downshifting and upshifting is a breeze. You got multi-function stuff on the steering wheel, your voice commands, your AC recirculate, your radio stuff, you know, all very nice and proper. This one does not have that tech package, so you don't get the big screen. One could argue it makes it more pure, or one could argue it made the guy who ordered it cheap. Either way, you know, it's fine as it is. Nice looking dash with you know, again, this lovely carbon fibery leather. You've got BMW's Professional, which you shouldn't use it unless you are one. In-dash CD with satellite radio, Bluetooth. All works very, very well, even for something that looks quite vintage. Down below, you've got your dual-side climate control, nice cold air conditioning in this car. You've got probably something that's not an ashtray, as they say. And this little stubby shifter here is the DTC, BMW's DTC dual clutch transmission. That replaces the SMG sequential manual gearbox, which was essentially a piece of crap, and I hated it, and it was horrible. This is better. I have to admit that this is better. The SMG was sort of an automated single clutch device. This is a two-shaft dual clutch device, so it essentially has two gear shafts, one for the even numbers, one for the odd, and two computers that sort of control which gear the car goes into, and it works very, very seamlessly and infinitely better than the SMG did. I'm in park at the moment because it was stopped. Park is weird. It doesn't actually have that on the shifter, but it does go into that mode. I'm sure it's just first with the e-brake on. Anyway, if you want to go into first gear, you move that over to the right. You can see we're in one. Nice. If I move this again, it will go into drive and it will shift itself. If I go over to the left and push up, that's my reverse. Very nice. And you can see if I let off the brake, which I have, the car doesn't move. It doesn't creep. It doesn't creep at first or reverse. It just stays put. You know, that's a little different from the way other people do it, but it's, you know, it's fine. So anyway, back into neutral. This little rocker panel here will control the speed and firmness of the shift. So you see I'm all the way up to 6 there. Sorry, that's 5. 6 would be for launch control, which we're not doing. If I roll this back to 1, this driving program 1, this thing's going to be smooth as hell. It's going to be like your, you know, dad's Buick Riviera driving to the grocery store. Drive and first program, it's going to probably leave in second gear. The shifts will be really almost torque converter smooth. You won't even know it's not an automatic. And, you know, it'll feel very docile. You run it up here to the highest program, and the shifts will become a lot firmer, a lot stiffer, and much more sporty. And the rev matching that you're going to hear when it is just amazing. The power button changes the throttle response on the car. There's virtually no reason to turn it off, none at all. I think it's the stupidest button in the world. Just leave it on, for God's sake. It does next to nothing. I mean, I could see if pressing it added 100 horsepower or something, but it doesn't. It just changes the throttle tip in, and I think it's just dumb to not just leave it on all the time. EDC, electronic dampening control, that'll firm up your suspension or make it softer. Traction control off. If you press that, it's going to turn off the traction control in the car, obviously, and make it so that you can really commit some felonious acts. Back here you've got, that is definitely not a cup holder, some kind of change purse maybe. We've got a center console here with an actual cigarette lighter and other sort of cup holder, an auxiliary in, a USB, all very nice. To run the top, I'm going to push down on this guy. You see the trunk comes up from the reverse. Up comes that beautiful aluminum folding hardtop. Down goes the trunk. And here they all come to seal themselves into place. An absolute mechanical ballet, the tops on these cars. Just beautiful to watch from the inside and out. So let me real quick go to neutral, e-brake, and I'll give you a quick look at the car. with the top up. And that horrible BMW Bing. So there it is, essentially now a steel-topped coupe, which again, you know, there's some controversy over. Some people say if you have a convertible, it should look like a convertible, and a lot of people aren't even going to know this is one when the top is up. Well, that's fine. I think, again, a tin top, you know, adds about 400 pounds to the weight of the car, but does give you more firmness when it's up, and probably a quieter ride, although, you know, soft tops have gotten pretty great. So anyway, let's get back in. I'm going to put the top back down for this ride. Might make it more annoying, but I really want you to hear the cacophony that you get out of this thing when you're out in the open air. It's really what makes the convertible M3 special. So to put it back down, I'm going to pull up on that knob, down go the windows. Does that lovely tri-fold. Up goes the trunk. I did forget to show you the trunk size when the top was up. The hell with it. Very, very nice. And then this guy here will run all 4 windows down. So let me go over into drive for a moment. We're still in our fastest shifting point, which is good. Hear a very nice little menacing growl from under the hood. Now, it'll be hard to manually shift with the camera in my hand, which is good news that BMW's DCT does very nice sporting shifts without being in manual mode. So, oh God, let me get my sunglasses on. Away we go. So you got to be a little ginger leaving so you don't get the feedback like I just did. And we'll wait for traffic. There's another try. No balls on that one. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to hang a set of balls from this BMW. So I tell you what. Let me start by going into the sort of most docile driving mode. We're going to start with that. So let's say you've got your wife or mother in the car. You explain to her how to put it in drive. You run that all the way down to the first car, and then you send her off. You see the 2 came up when I did that. That means I'm now leaving in second gear. And I mean, this thing is basically you know, an old Cadillac. I mean, it could quietly and gently make its way around to the grocery store. You don't have to rev it too high. Other than that beautiful sound. Oh my God. But, you know, very, very peaceful and quiet, very nice and docile, and I'm not breaking any traffic laws. I'm just quietly making my way to work with 400 horsepower untapped. Tracks down the lane nice. You know, you hear some complaints about the steering in these not being as good as the prior generations. Well, fine. You know, that's a little bit of a BMW purist thing. They always cry about something. In this car, it is the steering, which let me tell you, it ain't bad. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is move this program over to a higher shift point, and we're going to get on the throttle a little bit and see how that feels. So as you can see, very, very different from the other method of just sort of quietly tooling your way to work. Instantaneous shifts, incredible sound out of that V8, perfect rev matching. You know, you're going to want to downshift this car. Listen to this, hang on. I didn't get it in time with my other hand. But I mean, on the downshifts, it does this lovely cackling and bobbling and just a fantastic amount of sound. You're just going to want to run this thing up and down through the gears, all 7 of them. When you're what am I saying? When when you're driving on the road, the DCT and drive, it's going to throw it in 7th, up to like 40 miles an hour. So the fuel mileage is actually pretty good, all things considered, for a car like this. Much better than you get with the manual, even, because you really don't want to be in 6th gear at 45. You're going to be in 3rd. With this thing, you're going to be sort of made to be in a higher gear, which is going to work for you at the gas pumps. Anyway, 2008 BMW M3 Cabrio. To many people, the perfect sports car. Kind of does it all. It's got enough room to be practical. It's fast as hell. It's a true 911 competitor, and it's theoretically going to be a pretty reliable car with almost exotic and supercar performance. You have an interest, give us a call, 239-298-8000, on the web at aenaples.com. I'm going to go look on Amazon now for a set of balls to hang from the rear bumper of this thing, maybe my own truck, and we'll see what we can do with that. Thanks for having a look. We appreciate it. We'll see you with the next one. Take care.